Welcome to Peace Pod. I'm Ashley.
I'm Maddie. We're here together to find peace within each other.
Today we're talking about our stories so we can help other people share theirs.
So let's get started.
Hi guys. Welcome to Peace Pod. I'm here with Maddie. Maddie, how old are you?
I'm 22 years old.
And where have you lived your whole life?
I lived in Hutchinson, Kansas my whole life pretty much. I also lived in Abbeville, Kansas also.
Where did you mainly go to school at, like, most of your childhood?
From kindergarten to 5th grade, I went to McCandless Elementary. And then from there, I went to Fairfield High School, which is actually pre-K through high school. So it was a very small school that I went to when I was there.
How many people did you graduate with?
About 13, actually.
Dang, that's a small school. I graduated with 15.
Holy cow.
From going to, like, a big-ass school, like 500 people. I met new people every day, and then
Yeah, that's
I
kind of how...
moved to a small town.
Yeah, and like with me, like when I had to go to Hutch High for a little bit, I went from a small school to a big school, so I understand like that big
Yeah.
is a big difference for sure.
And how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 biological brothers and then 2 stepbrothers.
Did you go to school with any of them?
Yeah, I went to school with all of them. We actually all grew up together, and most of my memories are in the Langdon house, where we grew up outside of Abbeville, and that school we went to.
Did you only live in one house in Abbeville?
Yes, we grew up there pretty much since I was in 6th grade to whenever before I got taken, pretty much.
You got taken?
Yeah.
What happened? What do you mean you got taken?
We lived there until I was 15 years old, so that's when we all got... My stepbrothers went and lived with their mother, and then my brother, my oldest brother, and then me and my youngest brother all got put into foster care. And it was a one-by-one thing. Like, my oldest brother got taken, like, he kind of ran away and turned himself in and got taken away, and then slowly each of us kids started getting taken away one by one. So my stepbrother's moms just took them, then Alex eventually got taken away, and then I had to get turned into Bob Johnson's one night.
And then how did this all, like, transpire? Like, what age did you start going through? What did you go through from DCF to get involved, and how did you grow up? Like, did you grow up in a church? Did you grow up a certain religion? Were both of your parents in the house? Like,
so the way I grew up is I did go to church all the time. I grew up at the Salvation Army. I started there because my Nana, she was working there, so she started us getting into church there. And I started at the Salvation Army at 3 years old. And I was there my whole entire life until I was like 18 years old. So I grew up there, and that's what I've known pretty much. And I have... My mom and my real dad are not together for a lot of reasons, and then she and my stepdad have been together since I was about 5 years old, so he's the father that I know.
And are you the oldest sibling?
No, I'm the second oldest. I have an older brother, and then me. My stepbrother, he's a little bit younger than me, not that much younger, and then my youngest brother, my biological brother, and then a younger stepbrother.
Gotcha. Well, during church and whatnot, did you go to any, like, camps? Were you a certain religion? And at, like, what age did things start getting hard for you?
So, before the whole church stuff and stuff like that, from a very little age, I've been through a lot of stuff, and I have a lot of things that I'm excited just to like share and tell people about because people might relate to it. And since a young age, I've been through every abuse you can think of. I've been through sexual abuse, I've been through physical abuse, mental abuse, I've been through like everything. Right. And so like at the first stage that everything started happening is so it's a really long story. I have a grandma, my Nana, that's what we call her. And she kind of, in my eyes, she kind of started this all.
The
And
trauma.
the trauma, for sure. She had a husband that she married, and I'm not going to say his name, but he's his, they got married pretty young. When she was about 17, they tried to get married, but then when they were 18, they got married. And they have 2 children together, and before that, she has my mom, a lot of baby daddies.
Love baby daddies.
Yep. I love them.
We'll get into that one too.
Yeah, literally. But pretty much, my mom, what was I talking about?
You going to your Nana's house a lot when you were younger, and what it started the trauma.
Yeah. And, this man that she used to be married to, so my mom worked all the time, and she did everything she could for us kids. And she was always at work, so she left us over there before my stepdad came into the picture, because my other dad is just a deadbeat, and we really never knew him. So we were always over there, and we were alone with him a lot, and this is when the sexual stuff started happening. And
Sexual abuse.
yes, a lot of it. And I was probably about 3 years old to 4 when this was going on, 4 or 5 years old when this stuff was happening.
And this was happening from your grandma's husband?
Yes, her ex-husband.
Her
They weren't
ex-husband.
married anymore, but they still lived together in this house, and he had his own separate room in the back of the house that we were running around in,
Yeah.
But he did a lot to us. I grew up with a lot of cousins. I grew up with my aunt too. We're all around the same age, and so there was a lot of us. And it was my older aunt, my oldest brother, and then my cousin, who's the same age as me. She's the same age, and it was all of us pretty much. And he would do really inappropriate things to each other.
Like make you guys do it to each other?
Yeah, he'd make us do weird stuff together, and he would, I remember, I never really knew anything that happened to me like this until, I started doing, sexual things myself,
Yeah.
started bringing that up.
Bringing back the memories
Yes.
to, what things happened.
Yep, very much so. And, he'd have me put, me and my cousin put on his shirts, and he was a bigger man, so we were wearing really big shirts, no underwear or anything like that.
Gross.
And so he would, at night, I remember him, something was going on down there, but I didn't know, nobody talked about that, you know? Nowadays it's being talked about more, but then nobody told us, this wasn't okay, if somebody touches you this way, tell me about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we went through a lot of that for a long time.
Right.
And he's been doing that. He did it to his daughter. He's done that to my mom. He's only done physical abuse to my mom, but he's done it to my cousin, his grandchildren, 3 of his grandchildren, you know?
Yeah. And, about what age did the abuse stop? And did you tell your mom about it?
No, I didn't really know. At the time, we never knew. And once we started getting older, and, once I started having a different life at this small school when I was out of Hutch, because that was my parents' goal, was to get us kids out of this
Out of
town,
Hutch,
Yeah.
yeah.
They wanted us out of here. Because my brother was causing trouble, and they didn't want us to, cause this trouble. And I love that school. I loved living out there. So it was when I was in 7th grade and I was at Fairfield, my mom pulled me into a room and she was like, well, Maddie, I need to ask you something. And I was like, well, what's up? Pretty much. And she was like, well, did he ever do anything? Oops, we could blur that out.
Yeah.
Did he ever do anything to you? And I told her, I was like, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, today, your 2 cousins, my younger cousins, they're younger than me, a few years younger, his granddaughters. And they told us today that, what he was doing.
Yeah.
But she said he told me that he was touching them and doing inappropriate things with them. and that they said something finally. And then finally I was like, he I think he did do stuff to us, but I can't remember what, Mom. Like, I was young.
Yeah.
Like, you
How
don't
old
just-
were you? You said you were in 7th grade?
No, I was 3, 4 when
3 or
that
4.
was going on.
Yeah,
so
and then you told your mom in 7th grade?
she asked me in 7th grade because all this truth was coming out about him. Like, he got
Yeah.
arrested, sent to prison. He's still in
And
prison.
then all the memories just kind of floated back, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it did
And
happen.
then I finally started to remember, like, what I said, like, doing sexual stuff, you know. That's when it brought a lot back. And I was like, wow.
And then was your mom with your stepdad at this time?
No, not yet. Eventually my stepdad came in the picture, and he could just, like, feel there was something wrong with the guy. He just got bad vibes from him, so he kept us away from him. So for a while, we weren't allowed around him, but all the other grandkids were around him.
Weren't around your stepdad or your grandpa?
My grandpa. Not my
Gotcha.
grandpa, but their
Yeah.
grandpa. So, yeah.
So this ends at about 5?
Yeah, and then my mom gets with my stepdad, and that's when everything else started changing in our life. That's when even more deeper things started happening to me and my 2 brothers, my biological brothers.
What's the one thing that you remember the most from those times as being little Maddie?
I remember a lot of times, like, us kids were free. We were allowed to just roam the streets, and, like, we were going through a lot of stuff, but at the time we kind of masked it by being kids, you know, riding our bikes everywhere and just living it up, running on our diapers, you know. Nobody was watching us, so we just came up with our own ideas. And I love those times, you know. Like, I still remember that kind of stuff, even though, like, we were going through stuff. We
Right.
always
You
pushed
still
through.
had good memories from your childhood, even
Yeah.
though it was traumatic.
Yeah.
What kind of abuse did your stepdad put you through, and when did that start? Was he right off the bat abusive, or did it take some time?
It didn't take very long for him to start being abusive. And it wasn't just physical abuse. It was, like, manipulative, narcissistic abuse, like messing with your head kind of abuse, like, still affects me to this day kind of abuse.
Like what kind of example?
Like, the physical abuse was really bad with us, like, growing up in the country. The house we grew up in, when we moved out there, we didn't have anything. Like, I didn't have electricity, I didn't have water. We had to take all the walls off, and underneath the walls there's, like, wallpaper, you know. We had to do everything. We had to help
Right.
make that house livable so we could live there with him, you know, with them. And so we kind of did more of that than him. So
Because he made you guys do a lot more work.
Yeah, so labor work and stuff like that, and it was really bad. And when it's really started, the first abuse really started was when I was about 5, 6 in kindergarten, and he started choking us and, like, pulling our hair and kicking us and stuff like that. And we knew it wasn't normal, so, like, we told the school about it, and they did an investigation eventually, and nothing really got done about it at the time, you know.
Yeah.
And so
I
we
know
just pushed it.
at some point, as we've talked about our stories together individually without the camera, you've told me about how he left you guys outside while they were gone all day and with just no supervision.
Yeah, and this is when we were, like, in, like, middle school, high school, once we were out there at Fairfield. And this is where most of my memories are, and this is where, like, I remember everything being bad because this house changed everything for us. And he would leave a day at a time, like, be gone all day. My mom's at work all day, and he's out doing whatever he wants, you know. We don't know what he was doing, but he left us out there. We didn't have much food. We didn't have much water. Like, it was pretty hard, you know.
Yeah, and you did it all with your siblings?
Yep, me and my 2 brothers mostly. His kids were somewhat a part of it, but not too much a part of it, you know.
Was there ever a point in time where you thought you weren't going to survive, like, that kind of condition? Like, not eating, being left alone, the abuse, even the physical abuse, like, did it get to a point where you thought that it wasn't going to end and that you weren't going to see the next day?
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's, I have had a lot of moments like that, because the physical abuse it was so bad. Like, I could tell stories and stories, but it wouldn't do no good telling those stories, but I could just say, like, it was horrible abuse, the worst that you can think for a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through a lot of that kind of stuff, and watching your brothers even get their butts whooped and stuff like
Traumatizing.
that. It's hard because I love my brothers to pieces.
So now you're carrying their weight on your shoulders.
Yep. And having to watch, like, my mom get her butt beat because it wasn't only us, she was also involved in this stuff. And it could have been over the stupidest thing, like the minor things, like you wear the TV remote, lose the TV remote, and it's all our fault.
And then he just gets mad super easy.
Yeah.
And then, like, to this day, that kind of trauma still comes back to you right there from, like, him yelling at you as a kid.
Yep.
Whenever you feel that he's in a bad mood when you're around him, you don't want to be around him because you can feel the tension. You feel like you're going to get yelled at.
Yep, and, like, even, like, living with him recently, like, that was hard.
How'd that go?
It wasn't good. He was still the same man, and I always say, like, second chances, but honestly, sometimes you only deserve one. And, like, he showed me over so many times, like, right. And I have such a caring, forgiving heart that I've given him so many chances that I kind of make it my own mind because, like, I love him and I have a lot of good memories with him.
Right.
That it makes it hard to understand, like, how I still feel, like, to this day. Like, I still don't know how to feel about him because
it's mixed emotions.
Yes.
You love him, but you hate him.
Yep.
It caused you a lot of stress, trauma, happiness, memories.
A hard life.
He made your mom happy too. Your mom. How old was your mom when she had you?
She had my oldest brother when she was 19, so 21.
21.
And then my youngest brother at 23. We're each 2 years apart. Yeah, she was young, really young.
Yeah. And do you think some of your trauma reflects on how you choose men now and your relationships these days?
Most definitely, because as we all know, she can tell you, a lot of people can tell you, and I even got references for days. And my taste in men is freaking awful, guys. It is so bad, and it's not. And I feel like it's a lot of my fault, but at the same time, like, everything I've grown up with a biological dad that's never had anything to do with me, to a stepdad who manipulated me all of my life and loved me all of my life at the same time.
But also hurt you.
Yeah, and watching my mom put up with something like that made me feel like it was okay to put something like that. Like, I haven't dated a lot of men, 2 guys treated me like assholes. I had some in between because I was trying to live my fun life. Don't do that. That's just fucking stupid. I'm giving you some fucking advice right now, and I'm sorry for cussing. It just happens. But some advice is don't do it. They say do it, and it's not worth it at all.
So how old were you when you were in your first relationship? Your first, like, real relationship?
I was 19 when I met him,
Or let me back up real quick. So, what's one word to describe your childhood for you?
I would say one word would be hard to sum it up, but I could probably give you 3. And that would be overcoming and strength I got in, and a lot of hurt,
Where'd you find the strength? I know you said you grew up in a church. What religion were you in? Like, what are your views on those kinds of things now as you've grown up?
So I grew up at the Salvation Army from the age of 3 to, like, 18, I said. I did a lot of it there. I went to summer camp, like, every single summer since I was 6 to whenever. And I mean, they had music camp, they had, like, sports camp, teen camp, like, all kinds of different camps.
From your church?
Yes, and these camps and these people, a lot of these people changed my life, and they taught me a lot about God. And they're Christian, and their organization is really cool. So if you guys have never looked into that, I would definitely look into that church for sure. And they even put like an instrument on my hand when I was 8 years old. I was playing the E flat alto horn, and I was so freaking good at it. Like little Maddie playing a little French horn thingy, you know, that's what they always called it, but it wasn't right.
So I want to get into the summer that you went to summer camp and finally found the strength. I know you were a mentor when you were really young in the church, and how you found the strength to overcome what happened, and then tell your story to the people at church. So, what's the story of that?
They ever since I was young, they've always wanted me to like. They made me join groups, even though I was young to join these groups. I was like one of the youngest kids, so they looked at me as a leader type because I was very mature, because I was going through a lot of stuff, but I handled myself pretty well, and I took care of my brothers pretty well, you know, and they saw that in me, and I was a fighter, and I won leadership awards to go even to bigger camps that they hosted in Wisconsin that I went to every year. So the other camps were in Kansas City, Missouri, and then the other camps were in Wisconsin. And these camps were like Bibleship, leadership camps. And some of these camps, like, they literally changed my life, because at this time, like, me and my brothers were going through some of the worst shit. I mean, worst stuff, like, possible that you can think of. And I was going to these camps, and they weren't going to these camps, so it was just me. And they would do, like, prayer, I forgot what they called them. I'd have to ask one of them. It was like a prayer thing where we sat in the dark and we had worship, and they would have us sit by ourselves and just sit in the quiet, and we just talked to God about things. And this camp changed a lot for me, and this is the first camp they ever sent me to on a scholarship, and I got scholarship awards for a couple years. And it changed my perspective on a lot of things, because they taught me how to read the Bible. They taught me how to actually have a good conversation with God, a comfortable conversation with God. Yeah, for sure.
I love God, and I'm very spiritual also. So, what exactly happened whenever, like, what transpired for you to get taken by DCF from the summer camp? What did you take away from that? Like, what exactly happened?
So after like a couple of years doing this summer camp, I think this was my third year doing this camp, and it was called CBLI, Central Bible Leadership Camp. And at this camp, finally, there was like 1 year, I was just getting so tired of it. Like, everybody was still home, nobody was taken away yet. And at this camp, like, I started talking to adults, and I started talking to people about it. And I was like, well, I just need to talk to you. And I didn't tell them what was going on, but I was like, I need to talk to you so you could help me talk to God about it. And at these camps, I'd cry to Him, I'd worship, I was
Feel it in your knees?
Yes, and like people, even like leadership people would tell me, like, I see the light of God in you, because I was trusting Him 100% through
to get
this.
you through it?
Yes, because like, what else did I have at that point, you know? All I knew was God, you know. That's what I've been raised on since I was a little girl, because my great-grandma raised me on that too.
And then you're coming home and you're getting abused all the time. You're watching your siblings get abused. You're going to church. You're finding God. You're finding your relationship with God. You're trying to find a way to speak to Him. You finally speak to Him. Yeah. And what happens?
And then finally, this was like the third year that I finally learned how to converse to God and ask Him, like, I was in my room one day, and it was just a bad day, and finally I was like, God, like, even talking about it now, it gets me emotional. Like, God, like,
really saved.
Like, help us. Like, yeah. we can't do this anymore. We're not okay. Like, we're going through so much, and none of us deserve this kind of abuse. And it was horrible abuse. And finally, like, next thing you know, my oldest brother, he got taken away, and then Alex got taken away. My stepbrothers went with their mom, and then it was me that got taken away next. So one by one, we
just vanished. By talking to God and the church counselors helping you talk to Him and praying about it, and it finally happened for you.
Yeah.
And then, so after this happened, what happened after you got taken? I know you said you got sent to Bob Johnson's from there.
Yeah, I spent 2 weeks there, and that place is advised, don't go there. Not fun. It's just a shitty place for kids.
For people that don't know what Bob Johnson's is, can you explain to them what that is?
So in Hutchinson, Kansas, it's like a shelter. There's like a good side and a bad side for juvenile kids, for older kids, and there's a good side where they've done crazy stuff. Like some kids like killed their family here and stuff like that. Yeah.
You were in there with them kind of kids?
Yeah, but we were on the other side of the wall. Yeah, so safe, you know. And it was different there. Like every night they come in there shining flashlights in your face because they want to make sure you were in your bed. Like, I want to run out this door because I'm trying to get some sleep on me, you know. But no, it was an experience there.
So it's basically like a jail for kids.
Yeah, but eventually I had court, and I got sent with my aunt, one of my mom's sisters, and we were with her for a while, and we started going to a big school in Hutch High. We started going to Hutch High, and that's when
from Abbeville.
Yeah, from a little tiny school to 13 people to a big school that had like 50,000. It felt like. I got lost still to the day that I left that school, you know? Didn't know where shit is.
Too big.
Yeah.
Meeting a new person every day.
Yeah, pretty much, and I hated every minute of it. I hated that school. And
how long did you live with your aunt?
Not very long, a few months. I turned 16, I know that much, and that's what I remember. And then eventually we got taken, like, she kicked us out because they didn't really want me and my brother anymore, because it was only me and my little brother living there, and she had 3 kids of her own, so
she was already busy.
Yeah, and it wasn't that she didn't want to hit us, it was more her husband was cuckoo, a whole nother story, a cuckoo man, you know. And she got rid of us, and we started living with our youth pastor from the Salvation Army at the time, because we've known her all of our lives, so she took us in for a while.
Was it pretty good there?
Yeah, it was pretty okay. It was different. It was kind of normal. So we were like,
this is weird.
Like, what are we doing here? And my brother was causing trouble because that's all they know. That's all in their blood, you know?
Yeah. So, how long did you stay with her? And then what happened after that? Like, did your mom ever get custody back of you before you turned 18?
Yes. So after that, they finally put us, like, we had to do a bunch of classes through DCF to get back into the care, because DCF is a whole nother story. We'll have to do a whole nother episode on that one. So we got put back into my mom's care, and she started renting a house here in Hutch, and we weren't getting hot.
Yeah. You started renting a house in Hutch? So you said that your mom lost custody of you. You went to Bob Johnson's. You lived with your pastor for a little bit. And then you also lived with your aunt, and then
my mom got custody of me again.
How old were you then?
I was still 16 at the time, and she was renting this house here in Hutch, like paying all the bills.
Was she still with your stepdad?
Yes, she was still with my stepdad. She's never left that man, but she wasn't supposed to have any contact with him when we were with her, you know, because we weren't supposed to be around a man that did that kind of things to us, you know. And so she was mostly not really there. She was mostly at his house, the house that they owned in Abbeville that we grew up in.
So they were kind of like split up, but they were together?
Yeah, most definitely. She was there when she had to be there.
She was playing it safe.
Yeah. Like
so she left you there by yourself to go hang out with him?
Yeah, all the time. It was for whiles at a time. She literally left and got married, left for a week at a time, and didn't even tell us where she was going. And they went to Las Vegas and got married and came back. I was trying to get us to take his last name, and I was like,
wrong one.
You funny. No, I'll change it to something else besides that. To Sanchez or something.
So did she keep custody of you until you were 18 and you were able to, I know you stayed in DCF's care for up until you were like 20, right?
Well, yeah, my story's kind of like different with DCF because like I was doing everything I was supposed to. So at this time I was living in this house. I was 16 and I started working at IHOP at the time. And this is where I started getting into a little bit of trouble.
What kind of trouble are you talking about?
A lot of trouble.
Are we talking about some things?
Yeah, some things for sure. Like at the first time
What all happened at IHOP? Who did we meet? What did you do?
Man, we
How
can't-
old were you?
Yeah, we got.
How did it affect you?
I was 16 when I started there, and this is where I first started like smoking weed at the time. I was doing drugs I shouldn't have been doing, like
cocaine?
Yeah, stuff.
We gotta be blunt with you guys, so.
Yeah, we're gonna be honest, and we don't want no judgmental out of this, so don't be.
Yeah.
Because we have a story to tell, and we're different now, so our story is stuff that we want to tell.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was doing freaking, what do they call it nowadays? Yeah.
Snow.
Yay,
blowing
whatever
snow.
It was doing it all, you know.
And then I know while you worked at IHOP, you lost your virginity.
Yeah, with my manager. So that's kind of embarrassing. But at the time, like, I had all these like problems, like I didn't know about, like these men problems, like from a childhood, and I was just like, oh, this guy's giving me inappropriate. No, girls, don't do that. Like inappropriate attention that
that you liked.
Yeah, like, and I thought I should like, but should not like.
Yeah,
you know.
And was that relationship toxic? And how long did it last?
It was toxic the whole time. Like my mom. Well, it's you, Mom. Like, she's going to find out now, because I was 17 when I started doing that stuff, and I stopped 17, and I stopped working at IHOP right before I graduated.
And what year was that?
I graduated in 2020, so.
And that's when I met Maddie.
Yes, this was after COVID, though, so I graduated early. I went back to the old school. I went back to Fairfield and graduated there. Because I fucking hated Hutch Highs. I was like, I'm going to go live with my parents again because fuck that. This is the only way I'm going to graduate because I never showed up at Hutch Highs.
Let's back up and go to your relationship with Reese. Was that before this or after?
Before this.
Okay.
My first relationship.
There you go. Let's talk about more of the toxic relationship that you had the very first time. I know the first relationship you had at IHOP was toxic in ways of manipulating and gaslighting,
but Kyle's
immature.
Was way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was that? I know you guys went skydiving together. Did you guys live together for a little bit?
We didn't really live together. I had my own apartment at the time after I worked my ass off, got my own apartment, and I met him at Starbucks, you know. Yay, don't meet men at Starbucks.
Or IHOP.
And he was, he told me all the right things, everything. We were together for years, but he tells me we weren't together, but we were. Like, we went skydiving together. Like, we did things like couples would do. Like, went out for my birthday, went out for dinners all the time. Like, I was over at his house all the time, and I really loved this man. Like, I really loved him, and I really cared about him, and he made me had a lot of feelings for him because we had a lot in common also.
Yeah. And then he just kind of gaslit you and told you, like, you were never together and stuff like that.
And he was doing all kinds of horrible...
Like drugs?
No, women.
Doing horrible women.
Yeah, I mean, like, old women. Gross people, like...
Cheating on you with old women?
Yeah, and, like, people that were, like, doing drugs, shooting up drugs, and then next thing you know, see him banging her in the next picture. I found his phone. Like, I went through it. Yes, ladies, I went through the phone. Don't act like you don't do it. Because I sure do.
And then you feel crazy after.
Yeah, but it's for a good reason. I should have looked through that phone a long time ago.
Found a lot of information.
Yeah, a lot
all
of
the girls he was dating, cheating on you with.
Yep. Weird stuff, you know. And then finally, all the times where I found out it was really crazy. Like, I have a side of me that, you know, I can handle my own.
Yeah.
So.
You don't want to be messed with like that no more. How was your relationship with him, like, loving, caring, like?
It was the same as, like, all the other men. Manipulative, abusive, and
gaslighters.
Yeah, like, I thought he loved me, but he never really loved me. Or no man that does anything like that to you, he don't love you. And I could just tell you that right now.
And that's just something you're starting to learn here recently in the last 4 years, huh?
Yes. And especially going through this last relationship, like, I've learned, like, they don't love you.
No man's gonna put your hands on you if they love you.
Not especially it's not a man if you do that.
Yeah.
Number one tip right there. He touches you, not a man.
Yeah. So, How are you healing from all these things that happened to you as a kid and in your adult life, and what's going on with you now?
And so, just like the childhood stuff, like going to church and stuff, I'm a strong person, and it's the way I was raised for sure. Like, there's a lot to it, the way I was raised. Like, everything wasn't perfect, but I still learned how to be a strong, independent, hardworking woman. So working all these jobs and making a name out of myself, you know how hard I've worked,
Yeah.
And I'm one person, and I can only do so much. I still struggle day to day with things because life never stops throwing lemons at you. I can tell you that much, and that's just the circle of life. And
Yeah.
it's God that has made me this way, and my mom is a huge supporter. She helps me so much realize, like, I get depressed easily. I have all these things. I have, like,
Have you tried suicide attempts and whatnot, thinking you weren't gonna live another day?
I've had thoughts, like really bad thoughts, and I had to get help with that for a while, um, and I kept that secret for a really long time, and I never really told anybody about that because I felt embarrassed that I needed all this
I've had
help.
that same feeling when I was 15, so it's nothing to be ashamed about.
Yeah,
I think everybody has been there. Like, they've hit a breaking point where
and
they didn't
maybe
think they were
this.
gonna, make it again, and we're just making it again. So
Yeah,
I think it's important that we're breaking generational curses and what our family put us through, and what, or like the trials and errors that God has put us through, and learning from them. And
yeah, because like me and you, like we this is how we are, guys. Like we
we
sit
talk
here,
about God and
everything,
our childhood and how we're healing and loving and changing and
everything, like, and we sit here and we talk about it because, like, not everybody talks about it, and it should be talked about.
yeah.
It should be a comfortable conversation that you could have with people. If you don't have people like this in your life, and your friends are making you, like, make bad choices and stuff, like, they ain't the real ones.
Right. I just had a friend recently tell me that going into a dark room and closing your eyes and hugging yourself and going back to a tough place is very healing. And the other day I actually tried it and I just started bawling my eyes out because I actually felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm hugging my little self and I'm feeling okay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those are just little things I've done. I've tried meditation. It doesn't really work for me.
Me either. No patience.
Yeah, I really love God, but I just got back into God whenever I got sober. I've been in and out of a relationship with God my whole life, fighting on what's real and what's not. So it's good to have that relationship back again.
Yeah, because I want more people to know more about God, especially doing this podcast because
Also, it's okay to be other religions. We don't
yeah,
care
for
what you
sure.
are.
Yeah,
We're
for
very
sure.
diplomatic. We don't give a shit.
Yeah, literally.
This is just
No
our
fucks.
story and how we're telling it and what helped us through it.
No matter what kind of God you have,
Yeah.
Buddha, whatever,
Yeah. It's
Mother
all about
Mary.
having some kind of spiritual self-awareness and having somebody there supporting you, whether it's your friends, whether it's your family, whether it's God, whether it's a spiritual, whether it's your crystals, whether it's witchcraft. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Just to be supported and being able to heal from things that you've gone through and things that we need to talk about more so other people feel comfortable talking about them, and it doesn't keep happening and people know that they're not alone, so suicide rates go down and drug addiction goes down. And we've both dealt with a lot of addiction in our life, a lot of all that.
Yeah. We just
So
know it. Like, that's
mental
our
health
way.
issues. Do you want to tell your story on how you got sober?
Yeah, so, like, at the time I was doing that stuff at IHOP of doing the cocaine and doing the manager. Like, he's the one that started making me doing the. This is just how I am, guys. You're just gonna have to get used to that stuff. I say funny stuff to make myself feel not uncomfortable.
I'm surprised we haven't cried because usually we're like, woo, we're talking about
I was
these
almost
things.
at the beginning, but I stopped myself. But the whole getting sober thing, like, finally, like, I was doing it for a while, and I was just like, what the fuck, Maddie? What are you doing? Like, running the streets, and I didn't have nowhere to live. I had no car. I had a job that I was working. That was it. That's all I had going for myself. But I was like, woo, let me spend all my money on drugs. You know, and I
then
thought
you got
that's...
into the wrong crowd. I knew you whenever you were first getting sober, when you first started discovering you didn't need it. There was a couple times I found you pretty high, but I don't think I've seen you high more than twice.
Yeah. And I
Off
was doing
cocaine.
it pretty bad. And I was getting in with the wrong people. And
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely looking for escape at that time because, you know, I was young and I really haven't. I mean, nowadays it's getting better, but for a long time I only had myself, and nobody really helped me. Like,
Yeah.
I had to fight for everything that I had. I had to work for everything I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting sober was really easy for me, but I mean, it's not easy for everybody. Like, I just realized
It was hard for me.
it's like, I realized, like, how stupid I was being. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're so stupid. All your money's going towards this, and you could have this.
Right.
And, like, nobody could realize that, but...
Also, you removed yourself from that group of people.
Yeah, I did. I cut them all off. I was like, they're God. Like, I've always... God. Like, I'm always talking about God. Like, God doesn't want these people in my life. Like, they're making me do bad things. They don't really care about me. You know, and they didn't. And he took them out of my life easily. And for a good reason.
Yeah. And then I know you kind of straightened yourself up when you were working at Carlos, and that's when things started kind of like going with the flow for you. I know that you've been healing a lot of your inner child and trying to speak your truth so it heals you, because I think a form for you of healing is just telling people your truth and telling people how you feel and expressing everything that happened.
And that's very true, for sure. Like, everything that I've gone through, I want to tell people about it, and I want them to feel comfortable to come and tell me about their stories too, because I want to know. And a lot of this brought a lot of things with me, you know, and made me the person I am today. And not everybody, like, comes out like this, like, not as strong as me. And I only say I'm this strong because, you know, I keep fighting.
Yeah.
You know, I can't stop. Like, even the days I don't want to get out of bed, like, I have to keep going and going and going and going, even on the days it's hard. And Carlos, that's when I was working 2 jobs. And that's when everything started. When I got my driver's license. I was about 19, 20. Got my driver's license. I already had my own apartment. I was living with a roommate. You already do that. And finally, when I got my own apartment, that's when things started.
Looking up.
Yeah, for sure.
And now she's having a baby.
Yay, for me. It's so exciting.
And what's your main purpose of sharing your story today?
So we know this is far from the end.
Yeah.
But, like, just this part of my story is, you know, to keep going no matter what, and to never stop, and to always believe in yourself. And
sharing your story, because it can help another person.
Yeah, for real. Like, I don't know whoever would be listening to this. Like, sometime maybe somebody, like, even if it's just one person, like, that's going to be a difference for me. Yeah.
Or even just them, like, hearing the things you've gone through, and then hearing how you got through them and what you're continuing to do in your future. Like, I know you're going to go to CNA classes. You're about to have a baby. Mm-hmm. You're working right now as a server. Yeah. So you're kind of getting it together.
Yeah.
You don't have a man. We don't care about them over here, I guess.
Heck no. We don't do them.
I do, but
no, they don't work with Maddie. She too cuckoo.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming and hearing Maddie's story. It was nice hearing it again. Having her express everything out to you guys.
And next week we're going to be giving a story about Ashley, and I'll be doing an interview on her. So we're kind of showing you right now, like, how we're doing it. Like, we're going to interview each other, even, like, different episodes, and we're going to interview different people at different episodes. So if different people want to come in and share their stories, we want to hear people's stories.
Yeah, and if you are interested in that, you can always leave a comment and message me or Maddie.
Or me, yep.
We'll get you. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Yes.